Hi, it's Michael here from Custom Bike Fit, and today I wanted to make a video around my top 3 tips around buying a second-hand bike. Now, over the last few years, obviously I've seen an explosion of bikes sold in the second-hand market with, I guess, first of all eBay and then Gumtree, bicycle market or bicycle exchange, and now sites on Facebook, groups on Facebook like Bicycle Market and Triathlon Marketplace. And I myself spend a little bit of time on those pages because I'm often asked by my clients to help them find second-hand bikes. They may have come in for a bike fit for a road bike or a triathlon bike, and when we go through their requirements and their budget, we decide that the best thing to do is look into the second-hand market. So they engage me to help them through that process. So I see a lot of pitfalls. Because not everyone obviously engages with me or engages with a fitter before they go and buy a bike. I see stuff online that makes me cringe, and I see issues when people do come in with bikes that they've just bought. You know, someone's bought a bike at second hand online, they come in for a fit, and I notice that there are a number of issues and things that they didn't expect that they were getting or realised they were getting when they were buying the bike. So my first tip is, don't rely upon the height of the seller of the bike. So the most common question I see on these forums or on these groups like Triathlon Marketplace and Bicycle Marketplace are, how tall are you? So the potential buyer asks the seller, how tall are you? And the seller responds, oh, I'm 1.70 m, I'm 175 centimeters tall. And the buyer thinks, or the potential buyer thinks, oh, I'm 174 centimeters tall, that bike's going to fit me. Well, that's not always the case. Now, there's a number of scenarios around that. The most obvious one to me is, why is the seller selling the bike? Now, they may be selling the bike because it's not a good fit. So for you to say, I'm the same height as you, or for the buyer and the seller to determine that they're about the same height, the bike doesn't fit person A, it's not going to fit person B. So that's concern number one. Concern number two is that even if you are the same height, you might have different leg lengths, different torso length, different arm lengths, that sort of stuff. So I see people come in, let's say there are 3 clients and they're all 175 centimeters tall. The saddle height can vary as much as 30 millimeters, sometimes more, between the 3 of those riders because they've got very different leg lengths. And the torso length can also vary. So one particular frame geometry is going to suit rider A, another one's going to suit rider B, and another one's going to suit rider C. So it's always a good idea, I think, if you get somebody engaged in that process to steer you into, okay, these are the sort of bikes that you should be looking at. So that's my first tip. Don't make your first question, what is your height? And don't base your purchase decision on the seller being the same sort of height as you. It's good information to have. I would ask them to take some close-up pictures of the bike, have a look at the saddle height. Is that the sort of saddle height that I ride? Is the saddle really high? Is the saddle really low? You know, just get some sort of indication there. The more information you have, the better. And that leads into my second point. So my second tip is, don't take anything for granted. So you might decide that, oh, I'm going to buy myself, in the triathlon world, I'm going to buy myself a Cervelo P3. Well, number one, there are lots of different flavours of that bike. Number two, what buyers or what bike riders often do is they change components on the bike. I'll give you an example. My road bike is a Specialized Venge. I bought the frame set in 2014. Now, if you were to go and look online and look at the Specialized Venge, and even if you went back in history, a 54 centimeter frame generally comes with 172.5 millimeter cranks, 42 centimeter bars, a 100 millimeter -8 stem. What else? The saddle, who knows? But just taking those factors into consideration, my Specialized Venge 54 centimeter has 170mm cranks, a 120mm -6 stem. I've cut the steerer tube so you can't lift that stem or those bars at all, and rather than 42cm bars I'm currently using 38cm bars. Right, so some massive differences there. I've also changed the front chain rings. I put on a compact. You know, you need to understand this stuff. You need to understand exactly what you're buying before you part with your money. You know, I've seen really small bikes come in to my studio here, very, very small time trial bikes with 175mm cranks and causing the rider all sorts of problems. So make sure that you get an inventory of everything on the bike. What is the crank length? What are the width of the bars? How long is the stem? Have you cut the steerer tube? What's the saddle? You know, the list can go on, but just make sure you drill down on as much as you possibly can before you part with your dollars. And the third and final tip, and the thing that I would do, if you're happy that the frame's the right size and the components are good for you, get a mechanic involved. So ask the seller to take the bike to their local bike shop and have the mechanic check it over and make sure the mechanic's being paid for that service. Okay? So in my experience, because I often get involved in this, if a mechanic inspects a bike, there's generally a charge. It might be between $50 and $100. And the things that I want to know are there any visible cracks in the frame? Are there any visible cracks in the forks? In the handlebars as well, if they're carbon. So, and the most common place you're going to find a crack, I find, in handlebars is behind the stem, or where the stem sits. So you want to get those sort of things checked out. You want to have the bottom bracket checked out. Make sure that the cranks are moving freely. Make sure there's no issues in there. Is the chain worn? Is the front chain ring worn? Is the cassette worn? What am I going to need to replace? Do the brake pads need replacing? Just small items. You might decide at the end of the day, okay, well the bike's not perfect. I am going to need to put on a new chain, or I'm going to need to change the cassette or the brake pads. But mechanically, otherwise, the bike's sound, the frame's in good condition. I now have a contingency. Okay, it's going to cost me, I'm going to get the bike serviced and I'm going to have these things changed. That's another $200, $300. And that helps you negotiate at final price. Now, those three things to me make perfect sense and not hard to do. It's just a little bit of effort on your behalf. If you're not 100% sure what you're doing, you can always engage with somebody like me. Now that's whether you're on the Sunshine Coast or in the region. A lot of people, as I said, will come to me because they want to buy a new or second-hand bike. But I also help people around the world. I'm working with a guy right now in Qatar. I've got a number of clients in Qatar. I was speaking last week with a lady in the United States. I work with people all around Australia and all around the world on their fit, but also on procuring bikes, whether that's a new bike or a second-hand bike. And what we try and do, or what I make sure we do, is we mitigate risk. We find the bike that's going to fit, but we make sure that the components are right as well, so there are no nasty surprises when the bike turns up. Anyway, I hope you found this of benefit. Thank you for watching, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video. Cheers.